Yay, we're back. We're back for more. Woo! The wind just came through and slammed my door. We've got a great entrance to our time together, Chelsea. I'm like, whoa, what's here? The spirits are with us.
They sure are.
All right. So welcome back, listeners, if you have tuned into this weekly series before. And if this is new for you, thank you so much for being here. This is a weekly series called Living a Bold Life. And it is guests that I invite to be here and spend some time with me. If you've watched this, you know I run through the same 5 questions each time. And it's really to show how we are so uniquely different, but it's also to show how we are very similar as well, especially when you start to look at people who I think are living a bold life, committed to showing up, committed to doing the work, to making messes, to cleaning them back up. And what I love about the series is, one, the guests are super generous. You're going to get something no matter how much of this you watch. And two, it really shows that boldness is what you say it is. Some people share like this grandiose leap that they've made. And for some people, it's that day-to-day stuff that sometimes we don't even think about. So I never know what is going to be said. I'm just kind of flowing and vibing, and we trust that whatever comes out in this moment is meant for you. There's no editing. It's all raw. It's all unfiltered. We are off the highlight reel. We're not here to look good. We're just here to be real. And so on that note, I have with me today Chelsea Camille. And Chelsea is, and I laugh because I'm going to read your blurb in a minute. And you're like, I go by many names. And I was realizing I have multiple last names for her in my different things with Chelsea. I'm like, where did I get that from? And then I read this and I was like, oh, that's funny.
There you go.
I like that.
Yeah. You get it.
So glad you're with us today, sister.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Yes, it's an honor and pleasure to have you here. So you all, this is Chelsea, and I love her bio because I think it's just really fun, and it's her, and I've gone through several edits of what I want to say in a blurb, and here's what I landed on and what I want you to know about me. Chelsea is an adventurer by spirit. She's a lover by soul. She's a lyric by vibration. She goes by many names, mainly Chelsea. And she is on this planet to fuck shit up. Well, we know why she's on this show then, don't we? Yes. She is a relationship and life coach by practice. And it is her sincere hope to help others find their personal legend. You're not here by chance, you're here by choice. If you listen, you'll get exactly what you need. And then all the links that I have for you to follow Chelsea, connect with Chelsea, those are all going to be down in the verbiage of whatever platform that you are watching this on. So follow her, find her. She also does a newer, really fun podcast. So that is Chelsea in a snippet. And if Chelsea's anything like me, I could write a bio like that. It would be different, like every day of the week if I wrote it. Like, oh, here's what I'm feeling today.
Truly.
Here's what I'm feeling this week. Nope, I'm the same person.
Yep. Yeah.
I love that. So again, y'all, remember that people are challenged when they come onto the show to share about one of the boldest moves they feel they have made. Sometimes people think about it in advance and then they change their mind in the moment. But it can be a challenge to dwindle it down to one thing. And so I'm excited to see, because most of these people have made lots and lots and lots of bold moves. So you're just getting to see a small snippet on their very big and expansive journey. So Chelsea, for you, out of all the bold moves that you have ever made, is there one that really just kind of landed with you or stuck out that made you feel, that's the one to share with this audience? That's the one to share when Jen and I talk.
Yeah, and that's such a great question. Yeah, I actually the thing that definitely jumped out at me was when in 2018, my year's a little bit off now because, the COVID year 2020 doesn't count. Um, so in 2018, I'm sorry, 2019. 2019, I left my job. I left my very comfortable job, but that was a super bold move at the time. I didn't have any safety net. I didn't have anything to leap onto. And so that was definitely the bold move that stuck out to me, being able to do that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Firstly, I want to acknowledge you for your courage because all bold moves, they require courage.
yeah,
And we're the one who gets to say how bold it is. You're not the first one who's been on this show who has shared leaving a cozy, cushy career job to as the bold move. And that one always lands for me because I did the same.
yeah,
And also had no safety net and didn't even think before then that I could be an entrepreneur. So I think this is a great one to share because there's always people out in the world in the conversation of, should I stay in this job? Should I go? And I know some clients of mine who are actually in that conversation with themselves right now.
yeah,
So this is a powerful one. And so y'all listen to this, right? She left without the safety net. So if that may be something you want to do yourself, but the no safety net is like maybe a circumstance that tells you you got to stay, I would invite you to listen to this whole thing because there's going to be some gold in here that's most likely going to support you with your similar experience. So, Chelsea, for many, but not all, these interview questions are fun because sometimes people will throw me for a loop and I'm like, oh, we need to like make up something new on the fly. It's a good thing about the moment, right? Because we're good at that.
yeah,
But for most people, when they make this bold move,
mhm,
there's something, push comes to shove. There is oftentimes something or a buildup of some things that get people to say, oh wow, I need to do this now. Now's the time. I'm making the leap. For you, was there like a push come to shove moment where you knew I've got to do this and I've got to do this now?
yeah, definitely. There was definitely a moment. And actually, the moment kind of started a couple months before I left my job. I was engaged to my partner at the time, and then she and I ended up breaking up, and um, this was all kind of happening in my like self-discovery. I was going through the most transformational year of my life. I was going through accomplishment coaches training program, and I was in a phase of taking my life back, taking my power back.
Mm,
And so me and my ex, I was at this job, and the job, I would bring the stress to my relationship.
mm,
And not that I equate losing the relationship to that, but I it didn't help, right? Having this job that, even though I made enough money to be very comfortable, and it's like I love the people that I work with, the work that I was doing. It was for a nonprofit. It was great. But there wasn't that like intrinsic value. There wasn't that satisfaction. And so that breathed um, a really uh, fiery life into the rest of the aspects of my life, right? It breathed a lot of anger and sadness and resentment. And so, kind of going through that breakup and really dealing with my feelings there led me to a place where I was like, it's time to clear house. I physically, at that point, I was like exhausted from going through a breakup. We also lived together, so I moved out. So I was physically exhausted. I was mentally and emotionally exhausted. And I was like, I cannot, in good conscience, I could not keep giving my energy away like this. It was really just sucking everything out of me at this point. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Who is it for? I really came to a point where I was at work one day, And my boss and I um, I loved her like an auntie. I still, she's a wonderful person. And as a boss, we butt heads a lot. So there was a day where we butt heads, and it was kind of my breaking point at that point. And I'm like, why? Like, this clearly isn't healthy for either of us. And it really was just that, like, at this point, I don't care anymore. I would rather sleep on a friend's couch than to mentally like give this energy every single day, right? When you're at work, I was working full time, you're working 40 plus hours a week. For me is where I was at, and it just, it wasn't worth it anymore. I was like, if I'm giving most of my time to building uh her dream, what happens to mine?
Mm.
And I really just hit that day, just something clicked. We got in this argument, and something clicked where I was like, why am I giving you my hours? If I'm going to work towards something, I'm going to work towards something that is fulfilling for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I think very often when it comes to quitting a job, like how you mentioned, it was a couple months before it started. I
Hmm.
would say most of us don't just have one event. We're like, peace. I think it probably is like to what you shared, a buildup of it. And then there's that point. And that's a lot of stuff going on at one time. And the program you were in, Chelsea and I went through the same coaching leadership program, and you will just, it is deeply transformational for the year that you are in it. Like, no nook and cranny of your life is left it's, yeah, I mean, you're just getting in there and getting everything.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And the engagement being broken off, having to move out, that's more big transitional stuff,
Yeah.
transformational stuff. Um, and yeah, bringing stress to the relationship, I think that is so common. I think, a lot of times we do bring our stress all over the place and don't really
Yeah.
know how to leave it where it is, which then makes me think, is our 40-hour a week now a 50 or 60-hour a week, right? Because like
Yeah.
we're carrying that with us,
Right.
and stress is
Right.
tiring. And what it sounds like for you is you really got to the point where you were tired out. And when we're tired out, we don't have as much energy to power through or to fight or to even struggle.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like for you, you just really kind of, and sometimes there can be a gift to getting that tired out and saying, I literally can't take anymore,
Yeah.
because it bankrupts some shit. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I love that how you shared it, because in my experience of quitting, it was too. I
Hmm.
had this idea of, oh, they can barely even afford to pay me. They're going to let me go down to part-time, no problem. And so I started
Yeah.
getting my clients. I was in yoga training, coaching training, and they said no. And I was like, oh, what? Oh my goodness. My plan is not going to work now. And so I went home, and then I walked in like the next week, and I was like, I quit. I'm
Yeah.
done. So to like you had been
Yeah.
building, I tell so many people this, whether they are the one taking the job leap or their friends and family are like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? This is crazy. It's
Hmm.
like, it wasn't out of left field, y'all. It was
No.
actually envisioned. It was actually something that was being worked to, whether you meant to or not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I actually had to reiterate that. I had people around me that I know they care for me, and they're uh kind of, their mess tried to get wrapped up in mine, and they were like, but it's a really good job. How could you like, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, I like, hey, would you rather have me sit here and complain to you or cry to you or come back and have these hard days just to gather a paycheck? Or would you rather see me smiling and have the mental energy to spend, you know, still maintaining my relationships? It was hard to do that.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. So, y'all, if you are going through anything like this, you don't have to just let people pile their fear on you. You can
Mm-mm.
say something back. I actually had to tell my parents when I did, y'all, you are just putting my fear on loudspeaker, and it's not helping. and we're going to have to take a little time out on our conversations if you can't behave. And they were like,
Yep.
no, we get it. So, y'all, when people do that, they just can't fathom how they would do it. So they're going to put all their fear and project it onto you.
Yeah.
So very, very important to be rooted in your choice. Otherwise, it kind of, when it's new for you, you can kind of be like a baby roots in a tree where you'll just rip out of the ground.
Right. Yeah.
And you were still rooting when they were saying that, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And yeah, you really can't let anything shake you. Like, you got to make that choice, make it for yourself. And if somebody does come up and say, well, this is, they're that little voice amplified in the back of your head, that little voice isn't you.
Yeah. And y'all also too, when Chelsea did that in the middle of a coach's training, like that's a structure for you to not get stuck in stories and fear and limiting beliefs. So for a lot of you, where you would leap and then you stop, it's just irrational fear. Work through it. But as always, I always want to be mindful and say, if you have experienced a lot of trauma and you suspect you're bumping up against trauma, get some help with that, because we don't take that lightly here. We know that can happen. And so if it is trauma, get some professional support if you have the means to, so that way it doesn't feel like you're really in danger if you're not. Because I think that's very different than a comfort zone, like a trauma zone almost.
Yeah. And that is very different.
So I always like to put that in, because I don't ever want people to think like, what's wrong with me? Sometimes, well, there's nothing wrong with you.
There's nothing wrong, right?
If it's rooted in trauma and it's more than comfort zone, it's going to be harder for you. And it is what it is. And there's lots of great helpers out there.
Yeah. And I love that you always speak to that. I do think that's an important piece to put in.
Well, and when I discovered coaching, I had a lot of coaches who weren't trained in a very, very wide range of like human development background. And I had coaches trying to push me through trauma, and my nervous system was spiraling out, and it was not pretty. And so I really had to go off and learn how to stand in my power and say, no, this is not something you coach to. This is trauma. Like, you need to back off right now. So because of how I experienced that, I'm so mindful, that I speak to that here, because, it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do love that you brought it in conversations that we've had before, and it's so like, oh, thanks for speaking to it. I feel like a lot of people don't. A lot of people would just push right through, right?
Yeah. And we know that our sweet nervous system controls everything. So if we're trying to push someone through something there, like, no, that's not going to be very helpful at all.
Yeah. Right. The re-traumatization. Yeah.
No, we don't want to do that here, do we?
No.
I love this next question, because I'm pretty sure that every guest has shared something similar, but then everyone has their own nuances. So use this word interchangeably, Chelsea, because formula might not pop for you. But what I've found in my own life, and in everyone else who's been on the show, we tend to have a formula per se for living a bold life, for making bold moves, like something in place where I know I need to do these things to keep showing up, to have the energy to do this, to not lose my shit. And for some of us, it might change seasonally. For some of us, it might change like all over the place.
Yeah.
But are there any things that you feel called to share that for you, they are non-negotiable? They have got to be in place for you to be living this kind of life that you're living.
Yeah. There are a few things, and this would be, I guess, like my well-being. I need to make sure, I always need to make sure that I have time and space to reflect, and to be alone. That's actually really important for me. I need, because I know I can make, I know myself being fully capable of knowing what I need. And sometimes I need to drown out the noise to get there. And so alone time for me is definitely something that I need, make time for, make space for, to be able to, answer my own questions. Um, and obviously a coach helps with that, but also just being able to remember who I am, um, before all these stories that get impressed upon me and upon all of us when we go out and live in the world. Um, Being able to just be myself, take some time alone without the expectation of anything or from anybody.
I love that. And I love that you shared that because I know there are still a lot of us out there who don't see being alone and time and space to reflect as luscious. They see it as, I don't want to do that. What for? This is
Yeah.
painful. And, it reminds me of, we know that for our computers and our cell phones to work optimally, they really do, tech people will tell you, they really do need to be turned off or rebooted once a day.
Yep.
And then you look at our suite operating systems. It's like, hey, when's the last time you rebooted that thing? Done any upgrading lately? Oh my gosh, you're still running an iPhone 1? Hey, we're on like 12 or 13 or something now.
Yep.
Like, we're so good at doing it with our devices, I feel, and we're not so good at doing it with us.
Yeah. Because it's a scary thing. It took me a lot of time to be able to build to that, to be able to build to, sorry, there's a cute tiny frog jumping by.
Well, Chelsea is in Costa Rica right now as we are doing this call. So
Here.
just kind of think about that, because this wouldn't be possible if she was still in that other job. I'm thinking, yeah,
Yeah,
look at
nope,
that.
I'm here. This has been my office space for the last week and will continue to be for the next week. So, quit your job and you can have an office in Costa Rica.
Amazing. But you were
Um,
saying how for you, and this is true for me too, being willing to sit in stillness and be alone was very challenging at first, and you had to
yeah,
do it.
yeah, it took time because it was at first it was just like this uncomfortable feeling of walking into a space, right? So I kind of started by taking myself to the movies because I love movies, and I'm like, well, you don't really talk during them anyways, so I would go see like the cheesy movies by myself. And I was always so concerned about what other people thought about me, like, oh my God, are people gonna see me like buying a ticket for one and see me sitting alone and be like, oh my God, what a loser, or right? Like I made up all these stories of what it means to be alone or what it means to be out by yourself. And after taking myself on movie dates and really enjoying those, because I'm like, cool, like I get to see, I love movies, I get to watch this movie, and there's no distractions to it. Then being able to kind of take that and like nobody else, and realizing nobody else gives a shit in the movie theater what I'm doing or who I am. Then being able to kind of take that into, okay, I'm going to go grab coffee by myself. I mean, it was really like a buildup to be able to recognize, oh, I actually need that. Um, Whether it be in my day to day or be in a bigger space, the thing that's actually funny. It's the thing that led to um, my transformation, that biggest transformation year of my life, and joining accomplishment coaching and even finding out about coaching was I went on a solo backpacking trip to Cuba
Oh,
to do
wow.
just that and it was my first time traveling out of the country by myself. Uh, and it was definitely one of those things. I was nervous but excited, but it took so much build up to get there, to even be willing to step on a plane by myself, right? I'd always ever gone on trips with people mostly, or at the other end I'm going to meet somebody, but this was just pure adventure. And it was a build up to get there, but I recognize how important and how soul serving it is for me to be able to come back into myself on my own terms.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. I think, sometimes I even though my partner and he and I are both pretty introverted, so we give each other a lot of alone time. When I went away this past fall to the mountains by myself for a weekend. I'd done plenty of traveling alone, but again, it was usually to go and meet people, like, right? And so what I realized was so eye-opening. I was like, wow, I, even in my own home, am like the vibe keeper and the rhythm police, and like, how's everyone doing? Like, how's the vibes in here? And I didn't even realize how on I was in the background, trying to make sure, like, is everyone good? We good? How's everything going? And I was like, wow, like, no wonder why I get so tired out. I didn't realize that I'm like that until I was so solely alone all weekend long. Had no one to talk to,
Yeah.
no one to listen to. And I was like, this is eye-opening, because that was after years of transformational work.
Yeah.
Just going away alone to not be with anyone, like your Cuba trip. It
Yeah.
took that to see that.
Yeah. And I love that too, because it's a never ending, right? Like you always can find a new space of yourself when you do things like that. And that kind of speaks to what you said before, right? Being able to, like you said, I love that you put this with technology, being able to shut that operating system down, like shut it down, sister. Take a little break.
Yeah.
Vibe check, like don't worry about the vibe check. Yeah.
Reboot.
Yeah. I love that. I love that
I'm the
you
one,
got
it's
a
like,
lot.
I'm wondering why I even have an Apple Watch on. Half the time my cell phone's on please do not disturb. So nothing even comes through here. I'm like, my fancy watch is like a yoga timer for when I teach my restorative classes, because when it vibrates, I'm like, oh, what? No, leave me alone. No. No, it's a shot collar. So I'm like, this is a very expensive watch that really only gets used as a watch, pretty much.
Right.
Timer and a weather keeper.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, that's all you need. That's
I
so
love that.
funny.
Well, like, taking time to be alone, that is self-care. And
Mm,
for some of you, I feel like sometimes we can make self-care being about a lot of money. Like, we have to go out and do something or pay someone, but just being willing to spend. And if it's hard for you, it was for me too. One of my first coaches asked me, like, what is your busyness distracting you from? And turned out a lot. But when I was able to sit and be still, like Chelsea said, it's a buildup. So if that's new for you, maybe you just set a timer, and maybe you don't even start with 5 minutes. Maybe you start with one. Let that be okay, and just
yeah.
build up, because at some point, maybe a little bit less for my extroverted people, but at some point you're going to start to crave that, I think.
Yeah. Definitely. It just it puts you back in touch with yourself, with the universe. It's a great it's a well and a resource that we literally have, not even at our fingertips, it's in our fingertips. And
Yeah, yeah, right.
we I now jump at the chance to have that kind of sanctuary.
I do too. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, but I have children, I have this, I have that, what I will say to you is everything's an enrollment conversation. And if people can see the benefit in supporting you to get alone time, and they can also see how it supports them, people are going to work with you to help you provide that. And I will say, I have seen I won't name any names, but I have seen where I've been a little fly on the wall, and I've seen, people in my life, I've seen their husbands invite the women to take more self-care. And I've seen the women's gears turn on, like, oh, but I can't because of the kids or this or that. And I've watched the women decline the offer and then go on later to complain. And I'm like, no, no, no. Your man offered you space to
Mm-hmm.
take care of yourself. And I watched you say no. And now you're mad at him for going to take care of himself.
Yeah.
Do we need to talk about this?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Notice,
we
y'all, if you're doing
mm-hmm.
that, then
Yeah.
do your best to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Denying ourselves that little slice of heaven.
Yeah,
Um,
right?
yeah, I used to find a lot of righteousness in it. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. I have all these other responsibilities. I have all these things. Um, but and it goes back to that age-old saying, and it took me so long to grasp it, but you cannot pour from an empty cup,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And for anyone listening, if you know that your nervous system gets revved up, sometimes our system can actually get locked in a power through mode. and you might need to do things to invite it to slow down. Like that's why I'm a fan of like weighted blankets, like maybe it's acupuncture or body work. But sometimes I notice when I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like back into that rhythm and I want to stop and I feel like I can't. Like
Yeah.
that's when it's like, okay, what's going to help me like bring my system down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And being able to find those things, and you could find them in small things, right? It could be, for me at least, it's a twofer. I realize one of the things that I absolutely love to do is I like to go get my nails done.
Yeah.
That's like my self-care, that's my me time. That's like somebody else is pampering me. It's right. I see it as just like a win-win. I'm like, I will do whatever, I will move whatever mountains I need to move in my well, every other week to make sure I'm going to get my nails done. I could just go there and not even get my nails done, right? But it's just about that time to myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that you shared that. That's beautiful. Um, so the next question, it's hypothetical. We don't know the answer to this, but we can do our best to speculate. So for you, if you imagine back to 2019, where you left the comfy job, there was no safety net. You were in like at that point, what was the biggest transformational year of your life? And you had decided, I'm going to take the leap. I'm done. I'm not going to spend my time and energy building your dreams and sacrificing mine. I'm going to keep my energy for that. Hypothetically, let's just say you did not make that leap at that time and you
Mm-hmm.
decided, no, I don't care if I'm exhausted. I don't care if we're butting heads. This is too scary. I'm going to stay. Where do you think you might be now had that gone differently?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Um, Man, it's the trajectory that I was on is I think um I probably would have stayed at that job for like another 6 months to a year. I probably would have stayed at the job, been unhappy, maybe even sparked up another relationship with somebody that I thought was getting serious. I would, and then I probably would have eventually left that job just to find something else that was more of the same, and more of the same in terms of uh, maybe not the same job title, but the unfulfillment part. I
Yes.
think I would have stayed in that cycle of doing something that was not intrinsically rewarding. It would have more just been, I would have made and I think across the board, I would have made lateral moves. Lateral moves, still doing things that are unfulfilling, still like not really taking that control of my life, still letting life happen to me, still trying to like figure it out. And thinking all the while, like, oh well, I'm not happy here anymore, so I'm just going to get this job instead. Like making moves that would just help in the short term.
Right, right. Yeah, that's powerful. So y'all like that. I love this part of the interview because you can see for Chelsea and for many of our guests, some of if she would have stayed, people on the outside might not even fully know, like, right? Like, oh, Chelsea's really unhappy. Like on the outside, things could look really good. On
Yep.
paper, things could look really good. We know how many people are unhappy in their jobs and things are looking good on paper. But so you can see is either way, her life wouldn't have been destroyed. It wouldn't have fallen apart. We're just trying to get you to see whether you choose to make the move or not make the move, there's going to be an impact either way.
Mm-hmm.
And your job is just to decide whether or not you're willing to be with the impact. If you are, great. Maybe you don't make the move. If you're not, I would definitely invite you to make the move. But if anyone is not quite familiar with what that means, like more of the same lateral moves, what I find a lot as a coach, and Chelsea I'm sure does too, very oftentimes when we don't know how to level up our mindset and our self, internally, we think we're making all these moves, and on the surface we are, but they're no different. I can't tell you how many people have, I used to be a lot of corporate coaching, and almost all the clients that hired me was to help them quit their job and get a new one. And so I always invited them into the conversation of, what do you say about trying to reinvent this first? And then if it still doesn't work, we'll get you out. Reason was, for a lot of people, it wasn't the job. It was them and how they related to it and how they went about it. And I knew that if they just went to another one, it was going to be more of the same.
Right. Yep.
More of the same.
And you get that. Yeah, it's I used to be really good at that kind of like shooting star mentality of just like, you might have this job and you're like, okay, I'm leaving it. I'm going to this job. And this is going to be this job, right? Job B is going to be so much better than job A. And after you get to job B, you get there, you're there for 6 months, and then you're like, you're right back in it. You're right back. You have made no change in your mindset. You've just made that almost like just a physical change.
Yeah. And that's why we talk about leveling up. And leveling up doesn't have to look like getting a big coach who's like kicking your butt. Sometimes for some of us, that's not leveling up. That's more of the same, right? For me, that's more of the same. I need people who help me get deep inside and look at those different things. Like, I can do better than most people I have met. There is no breakthrough for me and more of that type of leveling up. Right. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Chelsea. And I say this for every part of the interview. Oh, I love this part of the interview. I love all the parts. What I love about the next question is every guest has just shared so generously throughout the whole thing that I'm giving the guest today, Chelsea, a chance to share one piece of sage wisdom. And it might be something you've already said, or you really want to drive it home, but you just may feel sparked to speak to something else. But if you're going to go out on that note, like, what would be that last piece of wisdom that you want to impart on these amazing beings on this journey with us today?
Yeah, I love this question. I love this question too. My piece of sage advice: do it anyways. Do the thing. That's really that's it. Do it anyways. And I borrowed I'm rereading now for I don't know how many times, The Alchemist. And I brought it with me down here to Costa Rica, and so I've been reading it. And I love and admire our young hero's journey and his mindset, and the kind of like doing it anyways, going forward anyways, taking that scary leap anyways. And that was one of the things. That's one thing that I've pulled from this book many times. It's one thing that I really got from my coach throughout my training program was, do it anyways. Do the scary thing anyways. It's scary. Something might be frightening. Something might be exciting. Do it anyways.
I love that. So y'all, do it anyways, and keep in mind that do it anyways doesn't mean that you might not need some support to do it. It doesn't mean that you might not need some help. If you are wanting to do it anyways, but feel like, I can't, get some support. We're not meant to make leaps by ourselves. I mean, some of us are better than others, but it doesn't have to be as messy and gnarly as we make it. And when we have people holding us up, we don't have very far to fall. I quit my job 4 sessions after working with a coach. 4. And I had been stuck like a victim for years. And I was like, oh, I could just walk in and quit. I'm gonna do it, actually. Okay, this is really cool. But what it took for me was support.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to ask for it, but Yeah, do the thing anyways. Whatever it is, do it anyways. You have resources. Um, do it. Figure out what they are. Do it anyways.
I love
Yeah.
it. Chelsea, thank you so much for your generosity today.
Thank you, Jen.
You're
It's been a
welcome.
pleasure.
Beautiful audience, whatever platform you're on. Again, the ways to reach Chelsea is going to be down at the bottom. You can follow her, you can reach out to her. She's got a podcast going, all sorts of amazing and cool things in the mix. And as always, my ask at the end of this is, if there is anyone you feel moved to share this with, please do. There is so much healing when we get to speak out parts of our life and journey. And there's so much healing when we listen to others doing it. And it's just really important to honor and hold space for one another's stories and to share stories. And I have seen so many people, like one of my best friends did this with me, and hers was a leaping one, and she shared it. She got an exponential amount of emails from former coworkers who are like, we wondered where you went. We want to do this. We are so unhappy. Her doing it gave them permission to do it in their own life. And it was incredible. So please share. This could be the permission someone in your life needs. Sometimes it doesn't take more than hearing a story and saying, I am no different. I can do it too. So I will see all of
Awesome.
you beauties in another week. And thanks again, Chelsea.
Thanks, Jen. Bye, everybody.